The sky over rural Texas always seemed vaster in the late afternoons. It was there, amid the orange hues painting the landscape of Hope Valley Ranch, that Emily found the only moment of peace in her day. From the kitchen window, she washed dishes, with automatic movements, her calloused fingers guided by the repetitive routine of a life that no longer felt like her own. "Emily, where's my coffee?" Vincent's deep, impatient voice echoed from the living room. Her shoulders tensed automatically. She dried her hands on her worn apron and grabbed the still warm kettle. "I'm bringing it now, Vincent." As she poured the coffee, she tried to steady the trembling in her hands. Vincent didn't even glance up from the newspaper. Emily returned to the kitchen, relieved she hadn't spilled anything. Small victories. Through the window, she saw Thunder, the black buffalo, grazing. In the back of the property, the animal lifted its majestic head as if sensing her gaze. There was something in that creature's eyes that brought comfort, a silent wisdom that contrasted with the stifling atmosphere of the house. "I'm going to check on the cattle," Vincent announced, standing with heavy movements. "If Clarence shows up, tell him I'll be back before lunch." Emily nodded without a word. His footsteps faded until the sound of the pickup truck's engine signaled his departure. The silence that followed was almost tangible. In that emptiness, she took her first deep breath of the day. Seizing her husband's absence, she grabbed a piece of bread from breakfast and walked toward the stable where Thunder stayed. The animal was her father's legacy, the only piece of her past she'd managed to bring into this marriage that felt more like a prison sentence. "Good morning, big guy," she whispered, approaching the fence. The buffalo moved closer slowly, its deep eyes fixed on her. Emily held out her hand with the piece of bread, which Thunder took gently. "You're the only one who understands me around here, aren't you?" Grace, the foreman's wife, appeared with a bucket of fresh water. Talking to him again. "Emily?" she asked with a subtle smile. "He's a better listener than most folks around here," she replied, running her hand over the animal's muzzle. Grace looked around and lowered her voice. "The boss doesn't like it when you come here alone. I know, but he hasn't forbidden it yet." "Yet," Grace emphasized. "I heard him telling Clarence this animal's taking up too much space for one that doesn't even turn a profit." Emily felt her heart tighten. "Thunder isn't going anywhere. My father left him to me. He's all I have." Grace placed a hand on her friend's shoulder. "Just be careful. Ever since the drinking got worse, he's been more—" "I know how he is," Emily cut in, not wanting to hear what she already lived with. The sound of an engine interrupted the conversation. The two women exchanged alarmed glances. "Is he back already?" Grace whispered, frightened. "Go, hurry!" Emily gave her a gentle push. "I'll say I came alone." As Grace hurried away through the back, Emily gave Thunder one last pat. "I'll be back tomorrow, big guy." When she turned to head back to the house, she saw it wasn't Vincent arriving, but an unfamiliar navy blue car parking in front of the porch. A woman around 50, her graying hair tied in a simple bun and wearing a floral dress, stepped out of the vehicle. She carried a briefcase and walked with purpose. Emily adjusted her stained apron and went to greet the visitor. "Good morning, can I help you?" The woman smiled, extending her hand. "Good morning, I'm Margaret, from the City Hall's social services. We're visiting the rural properties in the area. Is Mr. Vincent here?" Something in the woman's gaze made Emily hesitate. "No, he went out to check on the cattle. He'll be back later." "What a shame, but perhaps you could help me, ma'am." "Emily, I'm his wife." Margaret's eyes lit up subtly. "Even better, Emily. Can we talk for a bit?" If you're interested in this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Let us know which city you're watching from, and let's continue. Emily led Mrs. Margaret to the porch, offering her a straw chair and a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice. The visitor thanked her and set her bag down on the small rustic table. "It's a beautiful ranch," Margaret remarked, surveying the property with keen eyes. "Has it been in your family long?" "My husband's family has owned it for generations," Emily replied, sitting across from her. "I came here after we got married 5 years ago." Margaret nodded, sipping the juice. "And are you from around here?" "From the neighboring county. My father had a small farm, but after he passed, I couldn't keep it running alone." A brief silence hung between them. Emily noticed the social. Workers' eyes scanning every detail around them, the peeling paint on the porch, the water stains on the walls, the broken vase in the corner. "So, Mrs. Margaret, what exactly is the City Hall doing with these visits?" "We're mapping the living conditions of women in rural areas," she replied promptly, setting her glass on the table. "Access to healthcare, education, work, leisure." The word leisure made Emily suppress a bitter smile. "We also check for cases of social isolation," Margaret continued, choosing her words carefully. "Many women in the countryside face vulnerable situations without knowing there are resources available." Something in the way she spoke, slowly looking directly into Emily's eyes, seemed to carry a second meaning. "I don't quite understand what you mean," Emily replied, glancing down at her own hands. Margaret opened her folder and pulled out some pamphlets. "These are details about our program," she explained. "We have a support center in town offering courses, legal aid, counseling." It was then that Emily noticed a small card slipping out among the papers. The name printed on it made her heart skip a beat. Marianne's House, Shelter and Protection. Marianne. The word escaped her lips before she could stop it. Margaret's gaze sharpened. She was a very special woman we helped a few years ago. She managed to start over in another state. The house is named in her honor. Emily felt her blood run cold. Marianne. The name that was never spoken on that ranch, the first wife of Vincent, who, according to him, had run off with another. Man leaving everything behind without a trace. "I didn't know," Emily whispered. "Many people don't know," replied Margaret, deliberately vague. "But we're working to change that." The sound of an engine in the distance made Emily straighten in her chair, alert. She glanced at the wall clock. Vincent was coming home earlier than usual. "That's my husband," she said, quickly standing up. "Maybe it's best—" "I understand." Margaret also rose, gathering her materials but intentionally leaving the card on the table. "I'll come back another day when he's here." Emily grabbed the card and hid it in her apron pocket just before the pickup truck stopped in front of the house. "I'll walk you to your car," she said, guiding the visitor off the back porch to avoid a direct encounter with Vincent. "If you need anything, our number is on the card," whispered Margaret, squeezing Emily's hand with meaningful firmness. "Anything, any time." Emily nodded, feeling a confusing mix of fear and hope. When Vincent walked into the kitchen, he found her already stirring the wood stove. "Who was that?" he asked, tossing his hat onto the table. "A woman from City Hall," Emily replied without turning around. "Doing research about the ranches in the area." Vincent grunted, pouring himself some liquor. "And what did you tell her?" "Nothing. I said I didn't know anything, that she'd need to talk to you." He studied her for a moment, as if weighing the truth of her answer, before heading outside again. "I'm going to check on the corral. Clarence said the new calf isn't doing well." As soon as he left, Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the hidden card in her pocket. Marianne. The name echoed in her mind like both a revelation and a warning. At night, while Vincent snored under the influence of alcohol, she retrieved the card from its hiding place under the mattress lining and examined it in the dim light of the lamp. An address in the city and a phone number, a possibility she had never considered before. Her thoughts were interrupted by a noise coming from the stable. Worried about thunder, she threw a coat over her nightgown and slipped out of the house, quietly. The full moon lit the path to the stable. As she approached, she noticed the door was slightly ajar, something unusual. She stepped in cautiously and found Thunder restless, snorting and stomping his hoof on the ground. "What's wrong, big guy?" she whispered, stroking the animal's coat to calm him. That's when she spotted something strange on the ground beneath the hay. She knelt and carefully brushed the straw aside. There, half buried, was an old handkerchief stained with what looked like dried blood. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. With trembling hands, she picked up the cloth and examined it. In the corner, delicately embroidered, were the initials M.S. Marianne Smith. If you liked this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Let us know which city you're watching from. Stay tuned for more. The sun had barely risen when Emily was already up. The sleepless night had left deep circles under her eyes, but there was a new energy in her movements. The stained handkerchief, now hidden inside an empty cookie tin at the back of the kitchen cabinet, had changed everything. Like a missing puzzle piece, it was beginning to reveal a picture that had been incomplete for years. Breakfast passed in the usual tense silence. Vincent ate quickly, barely looking at her. "I'll be in the city all day," he announced, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "Got business at the bank and Clarence is coming with me." Emily nodded, holding back the relief she felt. "I'll be back tonight. If that woman from City Hall shows up again, send her away. We have nothing to discuss with them." "Yes, Vincent." When the sound of the pickup truck faded on the dirt road, Emily sprang into action. First, she went to the couple's bedroom and dug out an old cell phone from the back of a drawer, one she rarely used. Vincent didn't like her having contact with the outside world, claiming that phones only bring trouble. The device was dead as expected. She plugged it into the charger and waited patiently. Meanwhile, she headed to the stable. Thunder greeted her with a soft snort, as if recognizing her presence even before seeing her. "Good morning, big guy," she said, stroking the buffalo's muzzle. "We need to talk." The animal stared at her with deep, almost human-like focus. "You know something about her, don't you? About Marianne?" Emily knew it sounded crazy to talk to an animal this way, but Thunder had been her only confidant during those years of isolation. Besides, something told her the buffalo was somehow connected to the mystery. Moving more hay from the spot where she'd found the scarf, Emily began inspecting the stable floor. Between the old planks, she noticed one that seemed looser than the others. With some effort, she managed to pry it up and, to her surprise, found a small hollow space dug out beneath the floorboards. With trembling hands, she pulled out a plastic-wrapped bundle. Inside was a worn notebook and a yellowed envelope. She sat right there in the hay and opened the notebook. "Diary of Marianne Smith," read the first page in delicate, careful handwriting. Emily's heart raced. She turned the page and began reading. March 12, 2014. "Vincent has changed. Every day more distant, more irritable. The ranch isn't doing well, the debts are piling up. He drinks to forget, says it's just a phase. But I'm afraid of his eyes when he's under the influence. I don't recognize them anymore, flipping." Through more pages, Emily found an entry that made her hold her breath. June 25th, 2014. "Last night was the worst. I thought I wouldn't survive. His fists are too heavy, his words even more painful. He said I'm the cause of all his problems, that nothing goes right because of me. I plan to leave, but how? Where would I go? He controls everything, the money, the phone, even my clothes." The entries continued, describing a spiral of violence and control. Emily saw her own nightmare reflected in those words. It was like reading about her own life, written by another woman years earlier. The last entry was from September 10th, 2014. "I managed to contact a woman named Margaret. She says she can help me get out of here. Tomorrow night, when Vincent goes to the co-op meeting, I'll try to escape. If something goes wrong and someone finds this diary, know that I tried. And if you're reading this and living the same hell, the river still flows. There's always a way out." Emily closed the notebook, feeling hot tears stream down her face. The river still flows. The phrase echoed in her mind, enigmatic yet hopeful. The envelope contained photos. Marianne was a beautiful woman, with a shy smile and sad eyes, and some personal documents. At the bottom of the package, she found something that made her blood run cold. A hastily written note in shaky handwriting. "He found out. He's following me to the meeting point. If you find this, be careful. He always finds out. Thunder knows the way. Trust the buffalo." Emily looked at the animal, which watched her intently. "What do you know, Thunder? What happened to her?" At that moment, she heard footsteps approaching. Quickly, she hid everything back under the floorboards, covering it with hay. "Emily! Are you there?" It was Diane, the wife of one of the seasonal workers. Emily straightened up quickly and stepped out of the stable. "Hi, Diane. I was just checking on Thunder." The woman seemed nervous, constantly looking over her shoulder. "I saw the boss leaving really early. I thought today would be a good day for us to talk." "About what?" Diane moved closer, lowering her voice. "About Marianne, and about you. So I think it's time you knew the whole truth." Diane practically dragged Emily away from the stable, toward the small woods at the back of the property. Her restless eyes scanned every corner, as if afraid of being watched. "We can talk here," she said when they reached a clearing, far enough from the main house. "The men don't usually come around this part." Emily stared at her, anxious. "What do you know about Marianne?" Diane took a deep breath, sitting on a fallen log. "I worked here when she was the boss. She was a good, kind woman. At first the two seemed happy. Vincent was different back then." He smiled more. "What changed?" "The 2013 drought. They lost nearly half their cattle. The debts started piling up. That's when he started drinking heavily." Emily nodded. The story was familiar to her. "She started showing up with bruises," Diane continued, her voice almost a whisper. "At first there were always excuses. I hit the cabinet, I fell down the stairs, but everyone knew. And no one did anything." Diane looked at her with a mix of guilt and resignation. "What could we do? His word is law here. The police only come when he calls. The sheriff is his buddy. Besides," she hesitated, twisting her hands in her apron, "we were scared." "Scared of what?" "What he could have done. There were rumors about what happened to the ranch hand who tried to help Marianne once. He just disappeared. Vincent said—" He left, but no one believed it. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. "And then? How did she get in touch with this Margaret?" Diane's eyes widened. "You met Margaret?" she asked, surprised. "She came here yesterday, said she was from social services." A sad smile appeared on Diane's lips. "She's not from social services. Margaret runs a shelter network for women. She has contacts in several states. She was the same person who tried to help Marianne." Emily's heart raced. "What happened? Did Marianne manage to escape?" Diane's face twisted, in pain, and she tried on a stormy night. Vincent was supposed to be in town, but he came back early, found her ready to leave. "And then?" Diane lowered her voice even further. "No one knows for sure. We heard screams, sounds of a struggle. The next day, Vincent told everyone she had run off with another man, taking money from the ranch. But no one ever saw or heard from her again. And 6 months later, he brought you." Emily remembered the stained scarf, the hidden diary, the desperate note. The pieces were starting to fall into place, forming a terrifying picture. "Why are you telling me this now, Diane?" "Because last night I heard Vincent and Clarence talking about selling thunder for slaughter," she replied, her voice trembling. "And something about the way they spoke. It sounded like there was more to it. Something about erasing evidence, they're cleaning up the property. And then Vincent mentioned you've been asking too many questions lately." Emily felt her blood run cold. "Do you think I'm in danger?" "I think you need to be smarter than—" "Marianne was—" Diane answered, gripping her hands tightly. "And you need to act fast. They're taking Thunder away tomorrow morning." "Why is the buffalo so important?" "I'm not entirely sure. But Marianne had a special bond with him. The animal belonged to her father, just like he belongs to yours. They say that on the night she tried to escape, Thunder became restless, as if he knew what was happening. And after that, Vincent could never get near him again." Emily remembered the note. "Thunder knows the way. I need to save him, Diane. And I need to get out of here." The woman nodded, squeezing her hands even tighter. "I have a cousin in Austin. I can call him today. Maybe he can help." "No," Emily shook her head. "I already know who to call, but I need your phone. Mine is charging, and Vincent could be back any minute." Diane pulled an old phone from her pocket and handed it to her. "Here, but be careful. In this area, the walls have ears, and Vincent's eyes are everywhere." Emily dialed the number she'd memorized from Margaret's card. After 3 rings, a woman's voice answered. "Marianne's house. Good morning." "I need to speak to Margaret," said Emily, her voice trembling. "It's urgent. Tell her I'm calling from Hope Valley Ranch." There was a brief silence, then the voice changed. "Emily." It was Margaret. Did something happen? I found Marianne's scarf and the diary. I know what happened, or at least part of it, and I think the same thing might happen to me. Where's Vincent now? Not in town with the foreman, but he'll be back tonight. Listen carefully. Margaret's voice was firm and clear. You have a window of opportunity, but you need to be careful. We can't make the same mistakes again. They're taking Thunder to slaughter tomorrow. A heavy silence followed the news. Then it has to be today, Margaret finally said. At midnight by the river that runs through the property. Do you know the old bridge? Yes. We'll be there. Bring only important documents and the bare essentials. And Emily? Yes. Bring the buffalo. He's more important than you. Think? The call ended, leaving Emily with more questions than answers. But one thing was certain. This would be her only chance. The rest of the day passed as if Emily were in a dream. Automatic movements, racing thoughts, her heart jumping at every sound. She prepared lunch no one would eat, swept the floor that would soon get dirty again, hung clothes in the sun as if a normal tomorrow still awaited her. As her hands worked, her mind mapped out the plan. She needed to gather her documents, whatever, money she'd managed to hide over the years, and a change of clothes. It all had to fit in a small backpack she could carry without drawing attention. And she had to prepare Thunder for the escape. Around 4 in the afternoon, while the few ranch hands were busy in the distant fields, Emily made her way to the stable. Thunder greeted her with a soft snort, as if sensing something important was about to happen. We're leaving here today, big guy, she whispered, stroking the animal's muzzle. But I need you to trust me and stay very quiet until the right time. She checked the ropes and harnesses. Thunder was gentle with her, but she would need to guide him safely through the night. She made sure there was enough food and water to keep him calm until the moment of escape. Returning to the house, Emily gathered her most valuable belongings, her birth certificate, ID, an old photo with her father, and the small gold brooch that had belonged to her mother. She hesitated before the wedding ring. That band represented not a pact of love but a prison. With determination, she slipped it off her finger and left it on the dresser. At the bottom of a drawer, she found the money she had hidden over the years, small amounts saved from monthly expenses, a few coins tucked away from change. It wasn't much, but it would be enough for the first days away from here. As she finished packing her small bag, she heard the sound of the pickup truck approaching. Quickly, she hid everything under the loose floorboard in the bedroom and returned to the kitchen, pretending to be busy with dinner. Vincent walked in, the smell of liquor preceding him. He was in a foul mood, as usual after his trips to town. "Where's the food?" he asked, tossing his hat onto the table. "Just finishing up, I'll serve it now," Emily replied, avoiding his gaze. He studied her for a moment, his eyes narrowed. "You seem different today." Emily felt her heart race but kept her hands steady as she served the stew. "Different how?" "Dunno," he continued, watching her. "Something about you." "Must be the tiredness," she deflected. "I had a lot of work today." Vincent grunted something unintelligible and focused on his food. Between bites, he remarked, "Clarence got a good deal for that useless buffalo. They're coming to pick it up early tomorrow." Emily felt a tightness in her chest but forced herself to keep her expression neutral. "I thought it was only next week." "Things got moved up," he replied dryly. "Better this way. That animal's nothing but an expense, and you've been spoiling it too much." She nodded silently, feigning resignation. "Oh, one more thing," Vincent continued, pouring himself more liquor. "Those old documents in the shed. I burned them all today." Emily stared at him, confused. "What documents?" "Old paperwork, stuff from my father's time. It was all dusty, taking up space." He fixed her with an intense look. "I don't like holding on to the past, you know. What's done is done." There was something threatening in those seemingly simple words. Emily began to wonder if he suspected something, if he knew about the diary she'd found about Margaret's visit. "I'll be spending the night in town," he announced, surprising her. "Got a meeting with the accountant early tomorrow, before they come to pick up the buffalo." Emily's heart skipped a beat. It was an unexpected opportunity. "Should I pack a bag for you?" "No need. I'll be back right after lunch," he answered, standing up. And don't go wandering around the property alone. The men will be at the north barn, far from here." Emily read between the lines. She'd be alone in the house, but watched. She nodded meekly. Half an hour later, she watched Vincent's pickup truck disappear down the dirt road. When she was sure he wouldn't return, she grabbed the hidden phone and dialed Margaret again. "We have a problem," she said as soon as the woman answered. "Vincent will be gone overnight, but the men will be watching the property, and they're coming for Thunder first thing tomorrow." "That changes everything," Margaret replied after a moment of silence. "We need to act now. Can you get out with the buffalo tonight?" Emily looked out the window. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky red and orange. "Yes, as soon as it's dark. We'll be at the meeting point at 9, not midnight." "Like we planned. Be careful, Emily, don't make the same mistakes Marianne did." As she hung up, a chill ran down Emily's spine. What mistakes had Marianne made? What had really happened that stormy night years ago? With a heavy heart but renewed determination, she began to prepare. This would be the night her fate changed forever, for better or for worse. Night fell too quickly. Stars already dotted the dark sky by the time Emily finished gathering her belongings. The small backpack held everything she could carry from her life: documents, some clothes, her meager savings, and the memories captured in photographs. The rest would be left behind, like abandoned shells of an existence that no longer belonged to her. Through the kitchen window, she watched the movement in the north barn. Lights on, male silhouettes, the distant sound of country music. Vincent's men were engrossed in their card game and cachaça, as they were every Friday. This was her chance. Wearing a dark coat over her clothes, Emily slipped out the back of the house, careful not to turn on unnecessary lights. The waning moon offered little illumination, which made it harder to see, but also shielded her from prying eyes. The path to the stable had never felt so long. Every sound, a twig snapping, underfoot, the distant hoot of an owl made her heart race. When she finally reached the wooden structure, she felt a momentary relief. Thunder, as if sensing what was happening, was already on his feet, restless. His large eyes reflected the faint light seeping through the cracks. "It's time, big guy," Emily whispered, stroking the animal's fur. "We have to be very quiet, understand?" The buffalo let out a soft snort, as if replying. Emily slipped a simple halter over him and secured her small backpack tightly. Before leaving, she remembered Marianne's diary and handkerchief, still hidden under the floorboards. She hesitated for a moment, but decided to take them. Those pieces of evidence might be important later. Leading a buffalo silently across the property was no easy task. Thunder, though gentle, was a large, heavy animal whose hooves made considerable noise on the ground. Emily chose a longer path, skirting the open fields and following the edge of the small woods that led to the river. She was halfway there when she heard the sound of an engine. It wasn't Vincent's truck, but the jeep Clarence used to patrol. The property. Emily froze. The foreman was supposed to be in the barn with the others, not out making rounds. "Come on, Thunder, faster," she whispered urgently. Pulling the animal along, she dashed into the thick woods, where the darkness would hide them. The sound of the jeep grew closer, along with the beam of its headlights scanning the area. "Quiet now," she pleaded, wrapping her arms around the buffalo's neck. He seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. The vehicle crept slowly along the main road, just a few yards from where they hid. Emily recognized Clarence's silhouette behind the wheel, talking on his phone. Her blood ran cold. Was he talking to Vincent? Had they noticed her escape? When the jeep finally drove away, Emily let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. There was no time to waste. If Clarence was patrolling, it meant they were suspicious. They had to reach the river before he came back. The path grew steeper as they neared the bank. The sound of rushing water grew louder, offering a promise of freedom. Emily checked her watch, almost 9 o'clock. Margaret and her team should already be waiting. When they finally reached the riverbank, Emily spotted the old bridge, a wooden structure that hadn't been used for vehicles in years, only as an access point for local fishermen. On the other side, complete darkness. No sign of Margaret or any contact. A new fear tightened in Emily's chest. What if this was a trap? What if Margaret had never been real, just bait to catch her in an escape attempt, like they'd done with Marianne? Thunder let out a louder snort, tugging her toward the bridge. Easy, big guy. We need to be sure. That's when she noticed a small point of light on the opposite bank. It flashed 3 times like a code. Emily felt a wave of relief. It was the signal she'd agreed on with Margaret. Carefully, she began guiding Thunder across the bridge. The old planks creaked under the animal's weight, making Emily hold her breath with every step. They were halfway across when they heard the unmistakable sound of the jeep returning. "Damn it," she whispered. "Come on, Thunder. Faster." The hour. Jeep was closing in quickly. The headlights already lit up the bridge entrance when Emily and the buffalo finally reached the other side. There, partially hidden among the trees, was an unmarked white van. Margaret stepped out from behind a tree, accompanied by 2 younger women. "Hurry, we don't have much time," she said, helping Emily down the small slope. "It's Clarence," Emily panted. "I think he knows." "He definitely does," Margaret confirmed, guiding her toward the van. "We got word that Vincent never went to town. He's hiding at the sheriff's house waiting for you to try to escape." Emily felt her legs weaken. "So, it's a trap?" "It was," Margaret replied. "But we have our informants too. We managed to change the plans in time." The jeep stopped at the bridge entrance. Clarence got out, wielding a powerful flashlight, and began crossing on foot. "We won't make it through this road with the van while he's there," one of the women said, alarmed. "And there's no other route for vehicles." The other added. Margaret looked at the river, at Thunder, then at Emily. "There's a crossing farther down, about 2 kilometers. It's shallow this time of year." "There's no time to go back and get the van," the first woman warned as they saw Clarence's flashlight beam getting closer. "He'll catch up to us before we do." That's when Emily had an idea. She looked at Thunder, whose eyes seemed to glow with ancient wisdom. "The river," she said firmly. "Thunder can carry us across the river." Margaret stared at her, surprised. Are you sure? The current, he's strong and he knows this river." Emily ran her hand over the animal's fur with confidence. "That's how Marianne tried to escape, wasn't it? With his help?" Margaret nodded, her expression solemn. "Yes, but she didn't make it to the other side." The light from Clarence's lantern was getting closer. There was no more time to hesitate. "Let's try," Margaret decided. "You 2 go back to the van and meet us at the other point. If we're not there in an hour, head to the shelter." The women nodded and vanished into the darkness. Margaret climbed onto Thunder's back with Emily's help, who quickly followed. The buffalo, surprisingly calm, waited for instructions. "Go." "On, Thunder," Emily whispered in his ear. "Show us the way." The animal moved toward the riverbank and, without hesitation, stepped into the water. The current was stronger than it looked, but Thunder pressed forward with steady, sure steps. On the bridge, the lantern light stopped. They heard Clarence's voice shouting, "Emily! I know you're there. Come back now and the boss won't find out about anything." But it was already too late. Thunder was now swimming through the deepest part of the river, carrying the 2 women on a crossing that would change their lives forever. The icy water reached Thunder's chest as he pressed, forward with determination. Despite the current, Emily and Margaret clung to the animal's fur, while the opposite shore seemed to drift farther away with every attempt to reach it. Behind them, Clarence's shouts and the beam of his flashlight grew increasingly distant until they disappeared. Completely. "He went to get reinforcements," Margaret yelled, trying to be heard over the noise of the water. "We don't have much time." Thunder panted with effort, but held steady against the current, as if he understood the urgency of the situation. When they finally reached the opposite bank, Emily felt her legs tremble as they touched solid ground. They were soaked and shivering, from the cold, but alive and on the other side. Margaret pulled Emily into a small grove lining the river, where they'd be temporarily hidden from sight. "We need to hurry," she said, wringing the hem of her skirt to remove the excess water. "They know this area as well as we do." Thunder followed them quietly, his black coat glistening under the faint moonlight. Emily hugged his neck, tears in her eyes. You did it, big guy. You saved us. Margaret watched the scene with a wistful, "So look, I was told just like she said it would be," she murmured, more to herself than to Emily. "Who?" "Marianne." Margaret nodded, scanning their surroundings with sharp eyes. She always said Thunder was more than just an animal, that he understood things we humans take too long to grasp. They began walking along the riverbank, heading in the opposite direction of the ranch. Thunder followed them obediently, as if he knew exactly where they were going. "Margaret," called Emily after a few minutes of silent walking, "what really happened to Marianne? I know she didn't run off with another man, like Vincent told everyone." The older woman sighed deeply before answering. "We tried the same plan, the same crossing. But that night, Vincent found out everything, and Clarence followed them to the river." Emily felt a chill that had nothing to do with her wet clothes, and then Marianne and Thunder went into the river, just like we did now, but Clarence fired. Margaret paused, her voice choked with emotion. The shot didn't hit Marianne, but it startled Thunder, who lost his balance in the deeper part. "She drowned?" asked Emily, her throat tightening. "We don't know for sure. After the shot, Thunder made it to the other bank, but alone. We searched for Marianne for days, but we never found anything." Emily processed the information with horror. Had it been an accident or something worse? And why did Vincent never report her disappearance? Because he assumed she had managed to escape, and it was better for his reputation to say she'd run off with another man than to admit his wife had preferred risking her life in the river over staying with him. They continued walking in silence for a few more minutes. In the distance, they could hear the sound of engines. "They're looking for us," Margaret warned, quickening her pace. "The meeting point is just past that bend in the river." Emily adjusted the backpack on her shoulders, feeling the weight of Marianne's diary against her belongings. "What happened after?" she asked, unable to leave the story unfinished. "We organized a search operation for weeks, but the river was high from the rains, the current was strong, and nothing was found. Only her scarf weeks later caught on some rocks downstream, with stains that looked like—" Emily finished the thought silently. Blood. The same scarf she'd found in the stable years later. How had it gotten there? "Margaret, I found that scarf hidden in the stable." "How did it end up there?" The older woman stopped suddenly, turning to face Emily. "What? That's impossible. The scarf is kept at Marianne's house in a memory box." "But I saw it. It had her initials embroidered on it, and bloodstains." Margaret looked genuinely confused. "Emily, that doesn't make—" She was cut off by the sound of a quiet horn. They'd reached the meeting point, where the white van was waiting for them. The two women who had greeted them earlier waved, relieved to see them. "We'll talk more later," said Margaret, quickening her pace. "We need to get out of here now." One of the women opened the back door of the van while the other helped Emily climb in. "What about Thunder?" Emily asked, worried. "Don't worry," Margaret assured her. "Gregory's bringing the truck to transport him. We won't leave him behind." Emily hesitated, looking at the buffalo, who stared back at her with deep, wise eyes. "It's going to be okay, big guy. I promise." Once everyone was inside the van, ready to leave, they saw lights speeding toward them down the road. "That's Clarence's Jeep," the driver exclaimed, "and there's another truck behind it. Looks like Vincent's." Margaret muttered a quiet curse. How'd he get here so fast? Someone must have tipped him off. Fear tightened Emily's chest again. They'd come so far, she was so close to freedom. Then something unexpected happened. Thunder, who had been waiting calmly beside the van, suddenly charged toward the road, positioning himself between the approaching vehicles and the van. "What's he doing?" one of the women asked, alarmed. The answer came in the form of a powerful snort. The buffalo, his massive black frame imposing, lowered his head and scraped the ground with his front hooves, taking an aggressive stance. "He's protecting us," Emily whispered in awe. Clarence's Jeep slammed on the brakes, skidding on the dirt road. Behind him, Vincent's pickup truck also came to a stop. The two men got out but kept their distance from the enraged buffalo. "Emily," Vincent's voice cut through the night air, "get out of that van right now. You're my wife." She shuddered at the sound of that voice, which had commanded her life for so many years. But this time she felt no fear, only a deep certainty that her place was no longer there. "Start the engine," Margaret ordered the driver. "We'll go around them using the left detour." The van began moving slowly, skirting the scene ahead. Emily looked through the rear window, watching Thunder hold his defensive position, blocking Vincent and Clarence from following them. "We can't leave him," she exclaimed. "Gregory is on his way," Margaret assured her, gripping her hand. "He'll take care of Thunder. Trust me." When the van finally reached the main road, Emily glanced back one last time. In the darkness, she could only see silhouettes, two men retreating to their vehicles and a black buffalo, towering like a living statue, guarding their escape like an ancient protector. "Thank you, friend," she whispered, pressing her palm against the fogged-up window. "See you soon." 3 weeks had passed since the night of their escape. Marianne's house, as Emily soon discovered, wasn't just a temporary shelter, but a true sanctuary for women who, like her, had mustered the courage to rewrite their stories. Located on the outskirts of Denver, the 2-story house, painted a soft yellow, currently housed 8 women, each carrying invisible scars and reborn dreams. That Sunday morning, Emily woke up early. The sun had barely risen, but she already felt that familiar restlessness, the same one that had followed her all those years on the ranch. The difference was that now there was no fear, only anticipation. "Already up?" asked Natalie, one of the house coordinators, finding Emily in the kitchen making coffee. "I couldn't sleep much," she admitted, pouring a cup for her co-worker. "Today's the day." Natalie smiled understandingly. "Nervous? A little, but mostly anxious." The 2 women sat at the kitchen table, gazing at the garden just beginning to glow with the first rays of sunlight. The silence between them was comfortable, as only happens between people who share similar pains. "We heard from the lawyer," Natalie finally commented. "The restraining order was approved. Vincent can't come near you." Emily nodded, feeling a mix of relief and disbelief. It was still hard to believe there was a law that could protect her, that her words held weight, that her pain was acknowledged. "What about the rest?" Natalie took a sip of coffee before answering. "The investigation into Marianne's disappearance has been reopened. The testimony you gave, along with the evidence from the diary and Diane's confirmation, were enough for the federal police to take over the case." The mention of Diane made Emily smile gratefully. The woman had been brave enough to testify against Vincent, despite knowing the risks. Thanks to the Witness Protection Program, she and her family were now safe. In another state. "Is Margaret already up?" Emily asked, glancing at the clock. "She left an hour ago, went to get the last documents for the trip." Emily stood up, carrying her cup to the sink. Through the window, she could see the great oak tree in the center of the garden, where several women had carved their names over the years, a symbol of their new lives, of their stories that continued beyond the suffering. "I'll finish packing my bag," she said, heading for the door. "Emily," Natalie called, making her stop. "Have you decided if you're going to use the new name? Under the protection program, you know it's recommended." She hesitated for a moment. "I'm still not sure. Part of me wants to leave everything behind, including who I was. But another part," Natalie nodded, understanding. "You don't have to decide now. Think about it during the trip." In her small room on the 2nd floor, Emily finished preparing for her departure. The luggage was minimal. A few clothes, most donated by the volunteers at Marianne's house, documents, and Marianne's diary, which was now secured in a sealed envelope by the authorities, but of which she had made a copy. Someone knocked softly on the door. "Come in," Emily called. Margaret appeared, carrying a folder and a serene smile. "All set." "Almost," Emily replied, closing the suitcase. "Just saying goodbye to this room. I never thought 3 weeks in a place could mean so much." Margaret sat on the edge of the bed, placing the folder on her lap. "I have a surprise," she said, her eyes shining. Or rather, 2. Emily looked at her, curious. "First, all the paperwork is in order." Margaret opened the folder, showing several official documents. "A new identity if you want to use it. Property deed in your name. A bank account already with a small fund to start over. And even paperwork to go back to school if you wish. Margaret, I'll never be able to thank you enough." The older woman raised her hand, gently interrupting. "Herr Stunde, don't thank me. This is our life's work, giving women the chance Marianne never had. Her gaze grew distant for a moment. You know, when we found that scarf in the river, I made a promise that no other woman would have to risk her life for freedom. We don't always keep that promise, but every story like yours gives us strength to keep going. Emily held Margaret's hand, feeling the deep connection that had formed between them. And what's the second surprise? A smile returned to Margaret's lips as she checked her watch. If you're ready, I can show you now. The two women went downstairs, crossed the room where other residents were chatting animatedly over coffee, and stepped into the backyard garden which stretched toward a small wooded area. As they neared the edge of the property, Emily spotted something that made her heart race, a makeshift pen, and inside it, a towering, familiar figure. "Thunder!" she exclaimed, running toward the buffalo. The animal lifted its head at the sound of her voice, its large, dark eyes gleaming with what seemed like recognition and joy. It snorted softly as Emily reached it, stretching its neck to accept. Her emotional embrace. How did you manage this?" she asked through tears of joy, turning to Margaret, who watched the scene with clear satisfaction. "Gregory intercepted him that night after you left. It wasn't easy. Vincent and Clarence were furious, even made threats, but Gregory has his own methods of persuasion." Margaret smiled. "Besides, technically, Thunder is your property, not Vincent's. He belonged to your father and wasn't included in the marriage inventory." Emily couldn't hold back her tears as she stroked the coat of the animal that had been her only friend through so many years of loneliness. "Is he coming with me?" "To the ranch in Colorado, yes. The property has enough space for him. It's small, but it has a good piece of land, a creek, everything he needs to live well, and everything you need to start over." Emily looked at the horizon, where the sun was already shining brightly. A new day, a new life. For the first time in years, she felt something she had forgotten: hope. "You know, Margaret, I think I've decided on the name." "And what will it be?" Emily smiled, one hand still stroking the buffalo that would accompany her on this new journey. "I'll keep being Emily, but now a free Emily." Margaret nodded, approving the decision. It's a beautiful name for a beautiful story that's just beginning. The truck that would take them to their new life was already parked at the entrance of Marianne's house. As she helped load their few belongings, Emily thought about everything life had in store for her. New friendships, new challenges, maybe even new love when she was ready. But above all, the freedom to write her own chapters, one day at a time. And as the truck drove off down the road, with Thunder comfortably settled in the back, Emily felt the wind on her face like a welcoming caress. The fear had been left behind, along with the invisible bars that had imprisoned her. Ahead, like the endless horizon, was a whole life waiting to be lived, and this time it would be lived on her own terms. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Let us know which city you're watching from.